Hello, good morning friends. Today I am going to start ventricular system of brain in continuation of neuroanatomy. Ventricular system of brain is a system which is situated in brain as a large cavity, or brain has large cavity like a space that are referred to as ventricle, or ventricle is a large cavity space present inside human brain. There are three ventricles present in human brain: lateral ventricle, third ventricle, fourth ventricle. This lateral ventricle present in both cerebral hemisphere, and third ventricle present in midbrain, and fourth ventricle present in hindbrain. So these three ventricles present in three parts of brain. Lateral ventricle present in cerebral hemisphere, third ventricle present in midbrain, and fourth ventricle present in hindbrain, or third part of the brain. So this ventricular system is a large cavity like space present in human brain, and it is of three types. First is lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle is a large cavity situated in each cerebral hemisphere. Both the lateral ventricular cavity communicate with a narrow median cavity which is situated between the right and left diencephalon. Both lateral ventral cavity or lateral ventral or lateral ventricle is two in number, and both the lateral ventricular cavity communicate with a median narrow cavity which is situated between the right and left diencephalon. The third ventricle communicates below the fourth ventricle through the cerebral aqueduct of the brain. Means third ventricle, lateral ventricle is communicated with third ventricle, and third ventricle is communicates below with the fourth ventricle through the cerebral aqueduct of the brain. Cerebral aqueduct of a passage or narrow tubular space which passes the cerebrospinal fluid from the lateral ventricle to the third ventricle. Fourth ventricle. The fourth ventricle is situated in hindbrain between pons and upper medulla anteriorly and cerebellum posteriorly. So point is in fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle is situated in hindbrain or third part of the brain between pons. ये पोन्स के बीच में होता है. अपर मेडुला एंटेरियरली एंड सेरेबेलम पोस्टीरियरली. इसके पीछे, इसके अपर पार्ट में मेडुला होता है एंटेरियरली एंड सेरेबेलम पोस्टीरियरली. फोर्थ वेंट्रिकल के पोस्टीरियर पार्ट में सेरेबेलम होता है और एंटेरियरली अपर पार्ट में मेडुला होता है. तो फोर्थ वेंट्रिकल जो का सिचुएशन है, स्पेस है, ये बिटवीन situated in the hindbrain between the pons. The fourth ventricle is continuous below with a central canal situated in the lower medulla and a spinal cord. The fourth ventricle is continuous below with the central canal situated in the lower medulla and a spinal cord. The ventricular system is lined with ependyma, and at place it contains choroid plexus which secretes cerebrospinal fluid. Ventricular system is lined with ependyma or covered by the ependyma layer. and it contains choroid plexus present in fourth ventricle and which secretes cerebrospinal fluid. So we see ventricular system in diagram: lateral ventricle, third ventricle and fourth ventricle. Lateral ventricle communicates with the third ventricle and this third ventricle communicates with the fourth ventricle, and this fourth ventricle continues downwards in the form of a spinal cord and which is filled with the choroid plexus and which secretes cerebrospinal fluid. So ventricular system is large cavity like a space that are referred to as ventricles. Large cavity like a space or a space present in brain is called ventricles, and these three ventricles form a system called ventricular system and name as lateral ventricle, third ventricle, fourth ventricle. Lateral ventricle present in cerebral hemisphere, third ventricle present in midbrain and communicates to the fourth ventricle situated between the pons in hindbrain, and it also lined by ependymal cell which contains choroid plexus and secretes cerebrospinal fluid. So number one is definition of ventricular system. Three ventricles form a system called ventricular system in brain: lateral ventricle, third ventricle, fourth ventricle. Ventricular system covered by or lined by ependymal cells which contains choroid plexus. Different plexus in anatomy in which is choroid plexus which is present in ventricular system and which secretes cerebrospinal fluid. So this is a short introduction of ventricular system of human brain. A special discount for students. A special offer on pocket manual of obstetrics and gynecology including infant hygiene by Dr. Naresh Kumar. Price 300, discount 40%. Pocket manual of human anatomy. Price 200, discount 400. Offer valid up to 27/22. Postal charges extra. Postal charges free on minimum purchase of 3 books. For first year medical science or which belongs to MBBS, BMS, BHMS, BUMS, nursing or pharmacy or Ayush branches, this anatomy is prepared for those students who wants to success or pass in less effort. So you must read this book, Pocket Manual of Human Anatomy, which contains anatomy first, second, short answer, very short answer and long question answer. So you read this book and give benefit. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe.